Adding a method to an existing object instance. I've read that it is possible to add a method to an existing object, i.e., not in the class definition, in Python. I understand that it's not always good to do so. But how might one do this?
In Python, there is a difference between functions and bound methods. Bound methods have been bound, how descriptive, to an instance, and that instance will be passed as the first argument whenever the method is called. Callables that are attributes of a class, as opposed to an instance, are still unbound, though, so you can modify the class definition whenever you want. Previously defined instances are updated as well, as long as they haven't overridden the attribute themselves. The problem comes when you want to attach a method to a single instance. The function is not automatically bound when it's attached directly to an instance. To bind it, we can use the method type function in the types module. This time other instances of the class have not been affected. More information can be found by reading about descriptors and metaclass programming.
Preface: a note on compatibility. Other answers may only work in Python 2. This answer should work perfectly well in Python 2 and 3. If writing Python 3 only, you might leave out explicitly inheriting from object, but otherwise the code should remain the same. Adding a method to an existing object instance. You've read that it is possible to add a method to an existing object, for example not in the class definition. In Python. I understand that it's not always a good decision to do so. But, how might one do this? Yes, it is possible, but not recommended. I don't recommend this. This is a bad idea. Don't do it. Here's a couple of reasons. You'll add a bound object to every instance you do this to. If you do this a lot, you'll probably waste a lot of memory. Bound methods are typically only created for the short duration of their call, and they then cease to exist when automatically garbage collected. If you do this manually, you'll have a name binding referencing the bound method, which will prevent its garbage collection on usage. Object instances of a given type generally have its methods on all objects of that type. If you add methods elsewhere, some instances will have those methods and others will not. Programmers will not expect this, and you risk violating the rule of least surprise. Since there are other really good reasons not to do this, you will additionally give yourself a poor reputation if you do it. Thus, I suggest that you not do this unless you have a really good reason. It is far better to define the correct method in the class definition, or less preferably to monkey patch the class directly, like this. Since it's instructive, however, I'm going to show you some ways of doing this. How it can be done. Here's some setup code. We need a class definition. It could be imported, but it really doesn't matter. Create an instance. Create a method to add to it. Method 0, use the descriptor method, _get_. dotted lookups on functions call the _get_ method of the function with the instance, binding the object to the method and thus creating a bound method. And now, Method 1, types.method type. First, import types, from which we'll get the method constructor. Now we add the method to the instance. To do this, we require the method type constructor from the types module, which we imported above. The argument signature for types.method type in Python 3 is function instance. And usage. Parenthetically, in Python 2 the signature was function instance class. Method 2, lexical binding. First, we create a wrapper function that binds the method to the instance. Usage. Method 3, functools.partial. A partial function applies the first arguments to a function, and optionally keyword arguments, and can later be called with the remaining arguments, and overriding keyword arguments. Thus, this makes sense when you consider that bound methods are partial functions of the instance. Unbound function as an object attribute, why this doesn't work. If we try to add the sample underscore method in the same way as we might add it to the class, it is unbound from the instance, and doesn't take the implicit self as the first argument. We can make the unbound function work by explicitly passing the instance, or anything, since this method doesn't actually use the self-argument variable, but it would not be consistent with the expected signature of other instances, if we're monkey patching this instance. Conclusion. You now know several ways you could do this, but in all seriousness, don't do this.
Module new is deprecated since Python 2.6 and removed in 3.0. Use types. See this URL. In the example below, I've deliberately removed return value from patch_me function. I think that giving return value may make one believe that patch returns a new object, which is not true. It modifies the incoming one. Probably this can facilitate a more disciplined use of monkey patching.
I think that the above answers miss the key point. Let's have a class with a method. Now, let's play with it in IPython. Okay, so M somehow becomes an unbound method of A. But is it really like that? It turns out that M is just a function, reference to which is added to a class dictionary. There's no magic. Then why AM gives us an unbound method? It's because the dot is not translated to a simple dictionary lookup. It's de facto a call of a dot underscore class underscore dot underscore get attribute underscore a, M. Now, I'm not sure out of the top of my head why the last line is printed twice, but still it's clear what's going on there. Now what the default _get attribute _ does is that it checks if the attribute is a so-called descriptor or not, i.e. if it implements a special _get_ method. If it implements that method, then what is returned is the result of calling that _get_ method. Going back to the first version of our class, this is what we have. And because Python functions implement the descriptor protocol, if they are called on behalf of an object, they bind themselves to that object in their _get_ method. Okay, so how to add a method to an existing object? Assuming you don't mind patching class, it's as simple as then VM becomes an unbound method, thanks to the descriptor magic. And if you want to add a method just to a single object, then you have to emulate the machinery yourself, by using types.methodType. By the way,
if you want to see more, please consider subscribing.